And that's when it dawned on me, oh shit, I might be freaking out. I might be like having a wig. And I was actually kind of afraid on the plane. I was like, dude, what if during this talk right here, I actually start to fragment and come apart? Like right now, right here in this moment, as the words were coming out, I envisioned like, oh my God, it's gonna fucking happen. And the world would start to be like, and I would actually have a psychotic break. I literally started to think about that. Because it's like, this is myself reaching the actual place of meaning and its end.
Coming all the way from Minneapolis to Washington, D.C., we now bring you Enter the Freud.
Warning, this is for entertainment purposes only. It is no way medical advice. Listen at your own risk.
Because look, flying out here, I started to have a really bad experience of acknowledging that it's actually happening to me right now. And I didn't know it. I didn't know it. That like, I was like, oh, I just want to succeed and become a doctor. And then as a doctor, I need to be good enough doctor. And then I was like,
and also the Spartan race you were doing the Spartan race to kind of like be a mountain climb.
The Spartan race became that. And I never wanted to do the fucking race, but you somehow talked me into this shit. Yeah. But then it's like that, the Spartan race really pointed out like, fuck this race. Fuck this stupid thing that it's like manufactured to somehow deliver this thing to us. And I'm like, it's not gonna work. The thing that's coming for me is so big because it's like, oh, I had to overcome so much shit to become this doctor, right? I had to become like, oh, you're illiterate. Okay, become literate. You have all these problems. Okay, overcome those problems. Oh, then you're gonna do this thing. And then I realized, oh my God, I've finished the whole thing. Yeah. My project is completely done. Yeah. I've made it as far as I can as a psychologist. And I'm like, ugh. I either have to now like turn it into a business for business sake. Yeah. Because as a craft, I think I've done it. I've made it as far as it goes. Yeah. Any further is just like delusional. Yeah. Really. I think I'm as good as I'll ever get. Yeah. And then I'm like, oh my God, what will I do? And I could feel it happening to me on the plane, on the plane out here. And I was just like, oh shit. Like emptiness started to emerge. Yeah. And then immediately I thought like, I need booze. Give me something to drink.
Dude, I'm telling you, the substances aren't the next mountain. It's to like deal with the demons catching up with you.
You know what really made it evident to me? Get on the plane and the lady announcing on the plane, she goes, we're serving alcoholic beverages and they're limited one per person. And I haven't had a drink since January. Yeah. So it's like 10 months. Yeah. And my first reaction was, one per person? It's like, what about this? I have a thing.
I need more than one.
I need 10 fucking drinks right now. Like as soon as I literally realized, oh my God, dude, it's coming for me. The emptiness is coming. And then it was like, also the return to LA. I haven't been here in so fucking long. The return to LA. And I was like, oh my God, LA? Like when you get there, aren't you supposed to be something? And I was like, what the fuck have I become? And I'm like, oh no, dude, I was supposed to be something, right? I was supposed to be something by now. And this is so crazy because it happens to so many of my patients and I hear them constantly, they'll tell me like, oh, I thought I would by now. But the shit that they complain about, I'm like, and I shouldn't be such a jackass right now as like to belittle my patients. But what they say is like, oh, I thought I would have been further in my career and I would have more savings by now. And I'm always just like, oh, that's what you thought? I'm like, dude, because by now I thought I would be a fucking guru and raise a brain. Right? Like, I mean, well, at least that's what I was raised to become. Right? Totally. Like that was and it depends on your family system and what kind of a prince they raise you as, and how much kind of infused narcissism comes with this American dream culture. If they climbed out of the dirt and they're like, okay, you have to double what I've done.
I know. Okay, so but now again, is that an American or not? And that's the thing is like I'm the parent, you're my son. You must become something. Like we Americans are doing that. Yeah. And so now as an American, I'm like, I must become something. Right?
But so have we done it worse than Asian people?
Well, and did the clam start that?
Yeah, okay.
And do the elephant seals have that? Maybe the seeds are sown there, but I do think that's like I think the Americans turned it into an individualistic ego thing, but maybe not. To the birds of paradise, I'm gonna become something with my plumage, you know?
I can't wait for you to see that dance later. That shit is fucking awesome.
Well, fortunately, in the video, I'm gonna superimpose the actual bird of paradise doing it so that they don't have to see my...
So great. That's a really good point, though, right? Because each time it's great because we're kind of in this strange social psychological thing, and as we jump out of it into the evolutionary perspective, it's like keeps ruining the strategy, but it adds to the story, which is what this really we're doing. This is really just a story. Yeah. You and I are here telling a story about like, hey, check it out. Like, okay, if we know that in this world, you must attain, so we're almost giving ourselves and everyone who would possibly listen to this shit permission to go fucking get the right attention you need. Yeah. If you need to be desired, make sure you're extremely desired. Do whatever it takes. If you're that lady, put on all the shit, put in the dentures, change your shit so that people desire you. Do what it takes. And then on top of that, it's like, okay, well then with that comes the fall. And it doesn't matter how much money you make, whatever success you make, and to some degree, that will run out of what it feeds you. It will feed the story for a long time. Yeah. And just like my own suffering that's happening right now. It's like, well, here I am and I've like really done it and I have not felt an emptiness around this for a very long time. Mm-hmm. I like lived in this strange place where I always thought it was so weird that people smoke weed to get anxiety away from them. Cause I'm like, dude, I have no fucking anxiety about normal life. I walk through the world and I'm just like, I fucking win every day. Because I can read. Did you know I couldn't read? I couldn't read. Apparently I still can't speak English, but it's like, you know, like that was a big thing. Yeah. I used to think I was retarded. I couldn't read. So I'd be like, dude, I'm so fucked. And then one day I was like, Jesus Christ, I can totally read. And I was like, well, let me see if I can read really hard shit, right? And I'm like, I'm quantum mechanics. So that's pretty fucking weird. I'm like, I can suddenly like, I just look up all the words and pretty soon the concepts tie together. And I'm like, wow, it kind of makes sense of that. I couldn't explain it right now, thank God. But like, you know, that's a bit of a journey and it like carried me for a long time. And then pretty soon I was like, that wasn't enough. It's like that, like, oh, okay, you can read. That's great. Good for you, buddy. And it's like, oh, well, let's see what else you can do. It's like, and you keep succeeding. And I've had other therapists and other people try to tell me like, why don't you ever just settle for what you've done? You've done enough. Like, why do you have to keep doing more extreme shit? Yeah. Why do you have to keep like excelling? Yeah. Like, just settle down and stop. Yeah. And it's like, I can't.
And like, I don't know if anyone can. The settle down maybe is like succumb to depression and medicate yourself with beer and television.
So people
it seems like it's part of the, most people, but it's part of what we're talking about, which is running from our demons, is also just part of the human spirit of like, must do something.
Yeah, so if you have more demons than can be suppressed by TV and booze, if you have more demons than that, which apparently I do, right, they're fucking coming. Yeah. And they're gonna light me up if I don't do anything. Yeah. Right? So now I'm like at this horrible affliction that suddenly I'm like, oh my God, I must do something else. Yeah. Now I don't know what it is. And so I'm like in search of this next thing.
Yeah. And for a while you thought it was the Spartan race. And then you're like, no, not that.
Yeah, well, it's so silly because I never thought it was Spartan, but I started training for the race as if it was the next thing. Yeah. And that's when it dawned on me, oh shit, I might be freaking out. I might be like having a wig. And I was actually kind of afraid on the plane. I was like, dude, what if during this talk right here, I actually start to fragment and come apart? Like right now, right here in this moment, as the words were coming out, I envisioned like, oh my God, it's gonna fucking happen. And the world would start to be like, and I would actually have a psychotic break. I literally started to think about that. Because it's like, this is myself reaching the actual place of meaning and its end. And that's like a place in a story where you're like, oh my fucking God. Yeah. But here I am doing it exactly as I planned, and I'm not dead, and it didn't fall apart. Like I'm still still pretty much here. Like,
But had you done that like psychotic break auto combust, that would have been a really good YouTube video.
dude, that would have been my next thing. Right? I would have become like, dude, psychologist is filming in front of Hollywood and then loses his goddamn mind, takes off his clothes and then is arrested and like, ha ha ha!
Skipping down the hill.
Yeah, that would have been.
I was talking to this shaman lady just a few days ago, kind of about this question and like, what's the next thing? And
Seriously?
and she had a very clear answer, and I think she's right. My simplistic brain can't quite get it, but it's almost as simple as like 5D is the next thing, like the fifth dimension. It's like we're in the third dimension, and there's a fourth dimension, which is apparently like the other world, like where we come before birth and after death. But it's the fifth dimension, which is already there, but it's going to come, and slowly but surely we're all going to become conscious of it. And it's kind of like that, and I can't quite understand, but like that's the next thing according to her.
Weird. Right? So I think a lot of people do come into this kind of, their new thing is to become special because they understand astrology more than others. Yeah. There's all these like new kind of avenues and pathways of becoming something that is bigger and better than the other story. Right? It's almost like an alternative story. Yeah. The new age story. Yeah. The story of this type of a healer or a channeler. Yeah. Right? This is the story of the new wisdom comes from the Pleiadians or comes from some other type of galaxy, totally. Right? There's that there is that alternate story to try to make sense of this obvious fucking void.
Yeah, totally.
It's a real fucking void.
Totally.
And it's super weird that I just admitted that the shit was happening to me. Yeah. And now I feel fucking vulnerable and like strangely like as if I strangely admitted something that you shouldn't admit. Right? Because it's like,
I think everyone needs to admit that.
What the fuck is this? Right? Like, what is this that like, once you succeed, then it's like, oh shit, well, it suddenly becomes so obvious. It's like if you were playing a chess game and you're done with the chess game, you don't just sit there looking at the fucking board like, yeah, okay, so we're done. Yeah, let's just stare at it forever. And you're like, fucking that's done. Like it totally makes sense when you put it into any other context. But when it's someone's life, then it's like, oh yeah, well then it's like Elvis and he goes down. That's the story. Because no one can imagine what happens afterwards. That's what's so fucking weird. No one can imagine what comes next. No. Because it is literally outside of this. Yeah, it's like it's
outside of our world.
The contextual understanding. Totally. Nobody has the comprehension of, wait a second, once you reach the end of this story, that's literally the end. Yeah, yeah. And so then, but it happens like while you're alive. It's not, you don't die. You don't actually die or become psychotic. You just literally have a moment of like, fuck, I don't know what to do. And it's like, oh, well, I guess I'll just look for a taco stand after this. Yeah, man. Wow.
Dude, look at that fucking colors over there.
Oh my God, the shit happened again. We rattled on and it happened again.